I may have to go get my headlamp. I'm outside.
You know,
It's okay.
Unless you were
Jesse
ready.
might have to. We're now live,
Oh,
Jesse and Jeff.
whoops.
But if you need to get your headlamp, that's fine. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 115. Thank you very much for being patient, live viewers. Tonight, the show was pushed back just a little bit because both of our guests tonight, they work. They were traveling for the last 4 days, and they have family. So there's some obligations that I would much rather push the show to start late. Of course, my volume is turned up. Rookie mistake. My volume on my speakers behind the computer is now like full blast, so we're gonna get an echo. But yeah, of course, this is a story. This is an adventure I want to hear all about. So of course, I had to get my guests tonight, Jeff Browning and Jesse Haynes, on the show. So we had to push it back a little bit. Thank you for being patient. There you go, babe. But welcome to tonight's show, guys. I'm very excited to hear all about the Owyhee. I've been pronouncing it terribly in the pre-show. Owyhee.
Jeff's got a much better way to pronounce it. You can wait and hear it.
mine is Owyhee. Oh, you're my pretty, and your little dog too.
I like that one a lot better. I think Jeff is also calling it The Last Darkness, and we're going to hear all about why in tonight's episode. Welcome, everybody, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 115, with Jeff Browning and Jesse Haynes talking about the Owyhee adventure. Hey, little dog 2, a.k.a. The Last Darkness.
Sorry, my kids are watching.
Ginger Runner. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Very excited about this. If you want to just shut down Google Chrome because the audio is still, just close it down. Very excited about tonight's show. We are it's a little bit late. Those of you who might be listening on the podcast, obviously that doesn't matter, but those of you who are watching live, thank you for tuning in tonight. Very excited about tonight's show. The guests that I have on the show are incredible athletes, badasses, tough as nails. We've had one of them on the show before, but this is the first time for the other guest. I'm very excited to be joined by Mr. Jeff Browning. What's up, Jeff? Good to have you back on the show, dude.
Hey, good to be back. Good to be back.
And for the first time in Ginger Runner Live history, Mr. Jesse Haynes. Long time coming. What up, Jesse?
How you guys doing?
Good. So both these guys have pretty damn incredible resumes. Jeff has run like thousands of ultra marathons. I think 4,000 100-milers. Jeff is like very seasoned. We talked about it on the last episode with Jeff, and Jesse himself has an incredible resume. Most recently this year, not only did he finish Lake Sonoma 50, but the next week won Leona Divide 50-miler, and then the week after that got married, as well as went on this adventure that we're going to talk about tonight. So Jesse, you're always busy and always pretty badass. So it's awesome to have you on the show, man.
Thank you. Yep.
Where are you? Are you in the jungle? What's going on?
I've never got out of the Owyhee region, and no, I'm at home. I'm sitting out on my back porch.
It's beautiful. It's pretty. If the sun does set, you are allowed to go get a headlamp. I think that's what you were referring to. Okay, so set us up tonight, guys, because you just got back. The adventure we're going to talk about tonight, the Owyhee, I didn't know what necessarily to call it. Jeff is calling it The Last Darkness, which I think is a beautiful name for it. And Jeff, I'd love for you to explain kind of the origins of this thing. Where is it? What is it? And what drew you to it?
Sure. When I first moved to Bend in 2000, I just in 2001 ran my first 50K, and then I was looking for a backpacking trip with a buddy who was coming through from Alaska, and it was in March, and so we looked out into the desert in eastern Oregon, and there's this place called the Owyhee. It's Lake Owyhee State Park, and then south of that is basically a big lake. There's a reservoir and a big lake, and then there's a bunch of area that's kind of like, if anybody's ever been to Smith Rock, Oregon, it's like Smith Rock times 50. I mean, it's humongous. Wow. It's all Smith Rock, bigger formations, but very similar, volcanic tough. And so it's super gnarly and beautiful, and it's this big swath of canyon that runs about 170 miles. It's called the Owyhee Canyonlands, and it's 3 forks of the Owyhee, the north, the middle, and the south. And then there's a little west Owyhee that sits off to the west. they all kind of come from the southeast and head north towards the Snake River. So the main Owyhee, they all come together at a confluence called Three Forks. The little West Owyhee is where we started, which is kind of a headwater area of the high desert in southeastern Oregon. So what makes this area, I guess, kind of unique, and what drew me to it after this backpacking trip in 2001. I'd been thinking about it since I got into ultra running then, and been thinking about it for probably 15 or 16 years. Just trying to figure, I was thinking about how you could like go there as a runner, going light and fast. And I was looking for something to help kind of bring attention to after I got back from Patagonia last year, and something in my backyard. And I approached, Oregon Natural Desert Association, which is local here in Bend, and they kind of help protect and bring attention to environmental issues in eastern Oregon. So I had approached them, and they said, "Oh, well, we're working on this Owyhee project, trying to protect it, some of it protected, and bring some more like long-term management to the area because it's just BLM land, which, as you know, is a federally managed, but very loosely managed, and can quickly, land use can quickly change under BLM, and they were looking for something to kind of, bring some attention to this and protect it, and I said, well, I want to go run it. So so basically what we're doing is just showing it from an adventure standpoint, like from instead of looking at the economy from drilling or a short-term fix like drilling or mining, which there's a lot of threat to it right now. Also looking at it from a unique wild perspective, it's super wild, it's super remote, it's one of the largest roadless area in the lower 48, 2.5 million acres. And what that means by roadless is really rough double track roads, and that's it. There's a few improved gravel roads, but there's only one paved highway intersecting or bisecting the middle of the Canyonlands. That entire 2.5 million acres or 170 miles of river is bisected in the middle at Rome, Oregon, which is basically a gas station and a coffee shop, and don't expect much, in a boat launch. And but I mean, the point here is that it's this huge roadless area, and we're just trying to bring attention to it, like that it has the potential to be a very cool area for recreation, and I think that's where there's been a lot of pushback from the locals on making it a wilderness area or anything like that, or a monument, but it would keep grazing rights, and it would definitely keep out mining, which would only be a short-term. As we know, those kind of things bring power. They bring a little riffraff sometimes, and it's only a short-term economic gain. And if you set this place up to stay wild, you have long-term economic gain from recreation, not only running, biking, climbing. I mean, we're talking a place like Smith Rock that's 50 times the size of Smith Rock. So for recreation, this place is an untapped resource that could stay wild, just with a few like strategic trails. We ran double track and mostly off piste, so we were like, it was gnarly for sure. But the point here is that it's got tons of potential economically from a recreational standpoint, and I want to bring attention to that point.
So this region in general being so remote, was that also part of the draw? I mean, I know both of you guys really like to get out and do some pretty extreme things. Jeff, I know that you've done multiple adventures around the world. Is this something that really drew you to it? Was this wild nature of the Owyhee region? Yeah,
I mean, with it being so remote and roadless, it definitely makes logistics an issue there. I mean, this place, it's part of also what makes it kind of cool is they've just established the Oregon Desert Trail here in Oregon, which is basically right now a GPS waypoint, an 800-mile through trail that starts east of Bend about 25 miles in Milliken Valley in the desert and heads out kind of in a big U shape down through Hart and Steens Mountains and then down through towards Nevada, and comes and finishes coming up through the Owyhee Canyonlands the last 170 miles. So I like the aesthetics of running personally of the project, of finishing on the Oregon Desert Trail, following these GPS waypoints, and as far as we know, we don't know for sure, but we don't know of anyone else that's tried to attempt to run it at this point, which it's hard to run.
Yeah,
but there's been a handful of through hikers, and that's it. And so that's where we're basically just following a bunch of GPS points, and you know, trying to not get bitten by a rattlesnake or something.
Now, Jesse, you and Jeff have been friends, I know, for a long time. Did you have any idea what the hell you were getting into with this?
No, absolutely not. I had no clue. He just told me just about what he said just now, and mentioned that he kind of wanted me to be a part of it, and I absolutely love adventure, so it really joggled my interest. So as soon as he asked me to be a part of it, I didn't care. I didn't care how hard it would be or what we were up against. I was just up for the adventure.
What was he telling you?
Well, he
Go
told
ahead.
me what he just said right now, with it being a remote land, and he was, you know, the whole reason he wanted to run it, and that he had been out there, and it's the first time he had ever been out in the wilderness and actually seen northern lights. So he had just mentioned a bunch of things, and then he said check it out online. So I went online to check out some pictures that had been posted by the very few people that have ever gone out there. And the canyons just look beautiful and very intriguing, and yeah, I just wanted to be out there for a fun adventure, I guess. That's what piqued my interest.
So let's talk, I guess, about kind of the specifics of this undertaking. What were the mileages? What was the plan as far as days, and kind of the logistics behind? I think you had a crew at some point. How they were going to find you guys? Kind of the pre-adventure prep.
Well, because we were trying to bring some attention to it, we had a photographer and a videographer with us, and one support guy who's kind of like base camp, you know, logistics captain. But my buddy Jeremy here in town, who's also an ultra runner, and every single person was an ultra runner in the group, so they understood what we were taking on and the kind of mileage we wanted to try to attempt every day. And from a, you know, understanding that a lot of it was off trail, we thought it would be slow. I think Jesse and I thought we'd be a lot faster.
Absolutely.
It is gnarly. The terrain is really gnarly to travel through quickly. So.
Yeah, you want to post that picture up?
Yeah, I'm just gonna. This is just an example.
That was like the first quarter mile.
Wow.
Yep.
We were like, what is going on?
This is going to be a little slower than we thought.
Yeah.
What a trail.
Oh, yeah. So it's logistically, basically what we were going to do is try to run 40 miles or 39 miles the first day, 40 some miles the second day, 50 some miles the third day, 50 miles the fourth day, and we had 4-day window. All we had was Tuesday through Friday, and we had to be back in Bend by Friday night because my buddy Jeremy was running a 50K on Saturday morning at Smith Rock.
Smith Rock 50K.
Yep. So we didn't really have a lot of leeway. So basically what we did is if we couldn't cover the mileage, we had to cut it short. So when we took off the first day, we quickly realized after about 6 miles that there is no way we're covering 40 miles today. So we actually jumped out of the canyon, ran a double track to skip part of the West Little Owyhee Canyon, and then jumped back in to finish in the canyon. But we finished at 29 miles instead of 40 for the day. So we were short. We were already supposed to be across the big river the first day, and we had to base camp right before that. And then the second day ended up being 48 miles. We still didn't quite as far as we wanted to, and the last day, or the third and fourth day, it bled into the fourth day.
Together.
It ended up being 65 miles in 24 hours, 21 hours or so, 24 hours. We were out 24 hours.
If you just think of those numbers, a normal, you know, two guys that are normally able to run, let's say a 50K, and, you know, right around the 4-hour range, average 4.5.
Yeah.
And then you look at the mileage that we actually ended up, you know, that we were able to do. There was a big discrepancy between how fast we were moving and how fast we thought we could go. obviously Jeff said that we knew we were going to be going slower than normal because it was off trail, but we just didn't realize how rugged and tough this terrain actually was, and the way that we had to find our trail was the big thing. There's no flagging out there.
Yeah, there's
And
no
there's
race
no
director
trail.
marking it. Yeah, not at all. What are you gonna say, Jeff?
No, I was going to say the biggest thing is your route finding the whole time. So, even when you're on double track, there's other double track winding off of it. So every time you come to any intersection or any kind of weird where you think you're not following it, you got your, our iPhones out with the Gaia GPS app and going, oh crap, I don't know, like maybe I think we're a little to the left. No, I'm too low. I'm too low.
And does that have like major consequences if you are off your GPS by that much?
Well, I mean, if you're taking a bearing every once in a while, you're pretty good. Which basically by the second day, we were trying to figure out, like, you take a bearing over the next half a mile or so, and you pick up something on the horizon and just follow it to run towards that point on the horizon, and then when you get to another spot, you just reassess. So that way you're at least moving half a mile at a time before you got your phone out again.
Which is fine if it's daylight and you can see the terrain that you're coming up against.
Yeah.
But if we get into it, there was one portion through that 24-hour day that we were doing the GPS waypoint finding in the darkness, and you had to go on that line because who knows what was coming up. It might be a vertical cliff that we were going to go off of if we tried to veer left or right of it by even 20 feet.
That's crazy. It already sounds well outside of my comfort zone, but it sounds also really memorable and pretty extreme. I want to remind everyone that we are live, so if you're watching live, Kim is in the chat room.
I'm in the chat room.
What's going on?
There's a lot of chatter about reaction to the photo you posted of the trail.
Oh, wait, let me pull it up again just so people can
Everybody's
look at
just commenting on how gnarly that is, and I can say for myself, Ethan and I were also following along online, and we saw this picture or something similar. We kind of were both like, we thought they were doing like a trail.
Yeah, because like if you pull up the Owyhee Trail, you can actually see the cliff, or I'm sorry, the canyon. You can follow the canyon up. It's in Oregon, and on Google Maps, it's great. You can actually like see it pretty clearly. And there was, I believe, there's a trail on Google Maps that kind of goes along the river. I was like, oh, look at this beautiful trail. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, this looks totally remote. And then you look at this photo and go, oh,
so
it's different.
so it's not. Everyone needs to understand that around Lake Owyhee State Park, there are some trails that go up and down up the lake and around in the foothills right out of the state park. But once you get a few miles out of the state park or off the shore of the lake, it's straight up like cross country. So what the Oregon Desert Trail is GPS waypoints. It is not a trail. So there are some trails here and there or double track you're on, but most of the time you're off trail just following cross country GPS waypoints. I mean, I think their vision is for parts of this trail to eventually be a single track trail, but everyone needs to understand that trail is a little misleading right now because it's a concept, and understanding that it's a concept and not a trail.
Got it. So these waypoints have been essentially created by previous backpackers, backcountry travelers who have basically positioned their best route through this area. There's no trail. They're creating these waypoints as they go.
Yeah, some are some, like I said, some's double track like 4-wheel-drive Jeep roads here and there, but most of the time you're maybe in the it's like some of this is all, the route is all in the canyon, so you're along the water finding your own route, just following the drainage. So, in the overland parts up on the rim are fully cross country with some mixed up double track, but I mean, we're talking technical double track. So like lava rock everywhere, overgrown, barely 2-track. So it's definitely super technical.
A Honda Element's not going to make it through.
No, you need a full-size 4-wheel drive in this place.
If you guys have questions at all during tonight's show, because there's a lot popping up in my head of like, well, how the hell did you do this? Bring the questions into the chat room. Kim is keeping an eye on the chat room. Do you have anything going on right now?
Just in relation to that picture and all the overgrowth as well, Katie, Dwight, and a couple others have mentioned ticks. Did you guys have any encounters with ticks or wildlife or anything like that?
Yeah, Jesse, any tick
Yeah,
She's
it was not too long after we had gotten going, and I looked down, just by chance looked down, and there were two ticks crawling on me. One of the guys on the camera, I got those off no problem, but one of the guys that was doing our camera work, he had one sucking on him, and then the next day I found one that had just started getting some blood out of me.
getting busy. Getting busy.
Yeah.
What
The
about you,
little that
Jeff?
was left.
I didn't have any problems with ticks. I haven't found any, and I never found any on me the entire time.
It's
But
that high fat, low carb, man. They hate
yeah,
that.
man, there's no sugar for them to suck on.
He's a little bit more fat adapted than I am.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that at some point in tonight's show, because that's been last week's episode of Ginger Runner Live. The chat room was on fire with talk of fat adapted versus high carb, low fat, all that stuff. So, and I know both of you guys are, Jeff especially, I remember from Hurt, you were running completely fat adapted, and like you didn't bonk at all that day. At least visually, you were just completely on point all day. So I know that's a discussion that will come up at some point today. So day one, Jesse, you're basically in the thick of it now. Having only heard the stories that Jeff has been telling you about this project, you show up. You said the first quarter mile looks like that. What's going through your head at this point, knowing you have 3 more days ahead of you?
Well, the first day was just how are we ever going to cover close to 40 miles at this pace? Because I don't really wear a watch, but Jeff was definitely on, we were with the GPS, and he had his watch out, and we knew the next point that we were going to see our crew, which was like, I think it was 4 miles, wasn't it, Jeff? That we were supposed to see them, or was it
Yes.
6? But I know
remember,
that.
I think 4.
Yeah, I knew that 4 mile mark that we were somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 hours already, and so I just started.
That's crazy, dude. That's crazy.
Thinking, how are we going to cover 40 miles? But I was just there going with the flow. It didn't, whatever happens, happens. I mean, we've run many 100-milers. Even if it would have taken us till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, it didn't really matter. I mean, we were in there just enjoying the canyon, and it was fun. I mean,
Yeah, totally.
it wasn't like going through those willows was hell, but it was definitely fun going through them, and we actually got into a rhythm of how we needed to go through them. So it kind of started flowing. Like you go to the inside of the corner, and then you hit the sandbar, and then you have to cross the river, even though we didn't want to at first. We didn't want to get our feet wet because we knew we'd have wet feet all day. But once you get in the water and start crossing 1 or 2 times, the 400 times that we crossed after that really didn't affect us too much.
And Jeff, as the one coming into this with the idea of doing the Owyhee, did you have any sense of like, I got to keep Jesse safe, or or he's in it, he's also an experienced ultra runner? Did you ever have any of that leadership stuff that was kind of going through you, or was it just this is a partnered effort? We're going to do this together, and it's
Well, I think part of it is any kind of adventure like this where you're kind of pushing a little bit the envelope. Trying to do the kind of mileage we were doing every day in a very technical terrain. You need a partner, because if you're out there by yourself, there's really good chance something to happen. I mean, simply getting bitten by a rattlesnake or falling off a cliff, or falling off a boulder and like twisting your ankle or something. So having a partner is definitely in my book for safety is great. You got to kind of have that in this situation. The other is that I didn't think of it from that perspective necessarily, because everybody I know that's an ultra runner can kind of take care of themselves, and they're tough. And I was mainly thinking of it from a personality standpoint. One, Jesse and I get along really well. We're both pretty positive. He's probably even more positive than I am, so I'll give him the credit. We never really got that much where we complained or I got angry a couple of times maybe, but never at him. But overall, you need someone that you kind of click with, and you'll know after a trip like this whether you get along with someone or not.
Yeah.
Because
We're still friends.
We are still friends. We're probably better friends than we've ever been.
Absolutely, that's for sure.
Oh man! But the other thing is, you have to the cool thing about an adventure like this is when there's no trail to follow. Like you got to find your own way by following a GPS. I mean, I think it's really cool because you start to read the terrain and the flow of the terrain becomes its own line. You pick your own lines through everything. I mean, there was no lines except for some cattle tracks here and there. But we did learn a couple of the ravines where their cattle had been in. It's like, follow the cattle tracks, dude. They know where they're going.
They know where they're going. They'll get us down.
Yeah, exactly. They know how to get straight. We actually have a couple of really good questions in the chat room, babe. What's going on?
You're just mentioning safety, which is obviously a big thing. Randy asked in the chat room, super remote, any escape plans in case of injuries?
Yeah, what was kind of a backup plan? You are in a team scenario.
Well, the biggest backup plan was because we had a support truck doing base camp, and we had communication between DeLorme InReach SEs. So the base truck group of 3 guys had a DeLorme, and I had one, and so we were able to text message back and forth all the time, and that was such a key technology. I have to say, like, you need a backup map in case something gives out. You can't rely on technology even if you have a backup charger. Like, you never know. You might fall in the water and be submerged and lose all your technology. Like, you have to have a paper backup. So we had a paper backup, and we had some like general backup plans every day. We'd have a meeting, say, this is our plan. Here's our bailout routes. We had those marked on the map already with pins and circled on the paper map where we could bail. And then, you got to have all those things in place ahead of time, so that way if something does go wrong, you have backup plans. We had planned A, B, C, D, and E. We had to come up with some E's here and there.
Jeff attacked it like he does his 100-milers, and that's why he's won how many? 17 of
14.
14. He's won 20 million. No, Jeff is definitely a detail-oriented person, and he had everything just laid out with maps. And him and Jeremy, his buddy Jeremy from Bend, we got to give him a lot of credit. Yeah,
like, he's a map guru, and he was one of the key factors of us staying safe on this thing, because he is a founder of a company called Trailhead Labs, and they're definitely driving like online mapping in the United States, and it's it being all coming at it from the same angle. They're definitely doing great work on maps, and he's a map geek, and so he was perfect for this. He and I sat down for probably 2 different sessions with paper maps and fold-out maps, paper maps, topo maps, and then digital maps, and following the route on Google Earth and throwing down pins where we're zooming in and looking at the side canyons we can come in and out of when we're in the first one, especially because that one's the most remote, the first day.
Yeah.
It's way out there. Like, we had to drive 36 miles on double track off a paved road just to get to the edge of the canyon.
Wow.
So, we had all these bailouts. We'd zoomed in. We could see if there's a cattle track or some kind of trail from the Google Earth images, and we were like, okay, there's somebody's been down there before. We know we can get in and out right here. And so we would pin those on the map, and when we uploaded our file to the GPS, we had all those pins on there, and with descriptions, so you could look at your description and pop it up and say, okay, that's a bailout. And that's the beauty of technology, especially with Google Maps and Google Earth. You can zoom right in on a location, that we didn't have, 10 or 15 years ago, when you had to just have a big fold-out topo map and follow it with a map and compass. You still need those skills. Don't go to a place like this without those skills. I've done my backpacking trip to the Owyhee in 2001 was off-trail map and compass for 6 days with a buddy. So I've done the skills of backpacking and like you reading a map and having all that out. So you need those skills. I just want to throw that out there. If anybody's thinking about anything like this, safety first, or you'll end up dead.
This is a discussion that we actually had in this house recently. We
talked about it this morning.
We talked about it this morning because we've been just reading articles all year this year about people doing things that are either outside of their expert level or they're just not prepared. And it's frustrating to read the stories of people stranded, like runners stranded on the top of a snowy mountain that didn't come with micro spikes and have to be evac'd out. Or you hear of deaths and stuff like that. So I think this is a really important part of the discussion, Jeff. I thank you for bringing it up because it's something we haven't really covered on this show, especially with some of the stories and the other guests that we've had. talking about huge epic adventures and how amazing and beautiful it is. The truth is, if you're going to do something like this, and you guys can, this interview is testament to that, you better fucking be prepared, because the last thing you want is something to go wrong where you do have to rely on a plan B and you don't have one.
Well, to give you a good example, like day 3, 4 that bled into day 4, the epic day, that day started out beautiful, bluebird. It was hot all day. We were like up on the rim, and it was burning hot. And that day, like, you wanted to shed every layer you had, but we had these big old packs on with extra gear in it. And you know, that evening, a crazy storm came in. It hailed. It dropped temperature really fast. It poured down rain, and it was lightning up on the rim. And when we took off into the night to decide, okay, we're going to do this last 28 miles or whatever after we'd done 37, you know, in hindsight, I wish I had even more gear in my pack. I mean, if we would have had constant rain, luckily the rain quit in the evening. If we would have had rain the entire time we took off, we probably might have been in a little trouble. Like, we'd probably been okay, but we would have been like hating life and like really probably cold and that kind of stuff. I mean, we had enough layers for dry, but we probably didn't have enough layers for pouring down rain for 10 hours.
Right. And
I learned a lot from that moment. Like, always have the worst case scenario in your pack.
Which is crazy to think that two professionals who have been doing this for a number of years and who have been to this region before, and know it somewhat and are prepared, have a plan A through E, F, G, still are learning lessons. So I think that's a valuable lesson. What were you going to say before, Kim?
Oh, I was just going to say before, just kind of dovetail off of what we were talking about for being prepared and safety. There's, you know, the big push on social media that you're seeing all these like epic Instagram pictures or epic videos of people tagging their locations, so everybody else thinks they can just go there and do those things. But really, and thank you guys for stressing it about being prepared and knowing where you're going, and, you know, knowing things like you need to have a paper map in case your apps don't work.
Or in case you get submerged in the river that you didn't
Right.
intend to cross, and it destroyed all your technology, like something you would never plan on.
Like, to me, that's all very, very valuable stuff.
Yeah, it's something that we've been talking about just today. So that's kind of why we're stressing it. And Jeff, thank you for stressing it as well. And what were you going to say? We have some good questions
a couple
here.
questions in the chat room. Aiden Carter asks, what was your biggest fear on the trail, Jeff, if any?
Let's do this for both of you guys. Biggest fear. And Jesse, let's start with Jesse as far as biggest fear.
I talk too much. Go.
Well, Jeff told me that the first day we were going to have a lot of miles, and it was going to be the longest, toughest day, and that we had a lot of swimming sections. And then I started asking him, I was like, okay, what do you mean exactly by swimming? Because I can swim to save my life if it's like a short swim, but, you know, if there's a lot of swimming sections, I was really interested in how wide these swimming sections were, and to top it off, how cold the water is going to be, because you know, if you hit cold water and you're not a very good swimmer, you know, that was probably my biggest concern going into it, is, you know, how, you know, the possibility of drowning out there.
I actually remember talking to you about this, Jesse, at Hurt. Both you and I are not good swimmers. I'm surprised that swimming would be a part of this adventure.
And that I would agree to it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So yeah, that was probably my biggest fear as we went into it. But once we started hitting the canyon and seeing how low the water was, you know, the fear quickly went away, and I wasn't really that fearful of it. I knew I could get through it, but definitely was probably the thing that was most eating at me before we started.
Is this early on in the adventure here? Is this the water level? Was this a good testament to the river?
That was definitely the first 5 minutes, and we didn't know how deep it was. It ended up only being just about the privates parts deep. So yeah, we didn't have to get totally wet, and it was cold that morning, so I'm glad we didn't have to swim that. But there was talk about how high the river actually was, and I think Jeff said that normal flow in the summertime is somewhere around 200 cubic feet per per minute.
Per second.
And per second. And the flow that we were told was out there right now was 2,600 was the day we had left. Correct?
Wow.
2,600
Yes.
cubic.
Yeah.
So what's that? Over 10 times the amount of flow. So we were actually both concerned about the swim. I don't think it was just me, but
Yeah.
you know, I figured there was some way we'd figure out some way to get across it. I'm like Jeff said, I'm positive. He's positive. I think we're both pretty smart guys. We could have figured something out, even if it required building a raft or something.
I was gonna say build a raft. That'll do it.
I had a knife. I could whittle, even if it took 40 days, 40 nights.
What about you, Jeff? What do you think was your fear going into it?
Well, I agree. The water flow was my biggest concern. Second was rattlesnakes, because I've heard that area is like riddled with snakes, which because you're on the water and it's the desert and there's no other water source around. So yeah, those two things were definitely the water was more of a concern than anything. The first night we got there on a Monday night and like right at dusk. And one of the videographer that was with us wanted to go down and take a time lapse in the canyon at the water level. So me and Jeremy and him hiked down with our headlamps on to check out. I wanted to check out the canyon. Like, what are we getting into?
Yeah.
So like we'd been there. Maybe we'd set up tents and set up base camp, and we hiked down maybe a half a mile down to the river level. And I got down in there. I was like, well, the water's not as big as I thought, but I immediately saw the willows and how gnar it was in there, and I was like, oh man, this is going to get real tomorrow. I noticed that the water wasn't that high. I knew we had pools to cross, but the water wasn't flowing super crazy, and the West Little Owyhee is pretty small and quick. It's quick to drain. So when the water levels were high when we got there, that was of the main Owyhee, and when we ended up crossing it, it was dropping about 400 cubic feet per second a day. So when we got there, it was like 2,800 when we left or something, and then it was like 2,600, and then it was like 2,200 the day before, or the day we were going to leave, and then it ended up being about right under 2,000 when we crossed it. So we gave it another day when we had to go into the canyon, and I was actually pleasantly surprised at the water level in this first canyon the first day. I thought it would be deeper, but the willows and reading the terrain was a lot slower than I anticipated, for sure. Just reading the route.
So was this picture here fairly typical? I mean, I'm assuming you guys ended up having to get wet almost every day, having to deal with water. So is this? I'm assuming this is day 1 or 2 of just a typical creek crossing.
Day 1.
Day 1.
Yeah, that's day 1, and it was pretty much like that. Like, you'd walk to a sandbar, and if you notice out in front of us, the canyon bends to the left. Most of the time we were reading, like, we'd go in, like Jesse was saying earlier, we go inside left, right, or inside right, inside of the canyon, the inside curve, and then in the middle between the bends, you would want to cross the river somewhere in the willows. So we'd end up crossing in the willows, running up the side to where it shallowed out on the inside corner, because the river cuts into the cliff band. So you'd have to after about 3 or 4 bends, we were like, okay, I think we realized, we both said, okay, we're going for the inside of every curve, and we need to cross between them. And then once we got in that flow, we were moving okay, but you just, you got to find a route to cross every single like curve. So you're like, and it bends constantly. I mean, it's a windy little canyon. You may go
lots of rocks. There's lots of rocks to walk over.
Yeah, it just looks like there's countless obstacles to pass through, whether it's willows, whether it's rocks, river, sand, any sort of issue like that. And yeah, cutting around to the inside, I'm sure gives you somewhat of a better track, but at the same point, it's probably not the best. That's gnarly. That's some gnarly stuff. We have great questions here, Kim. What do we got?
We have some gear questions from Randy and Jesse. Jesse asked, I'm really wondering what kind of gear they carried, like overnight type gear, packs, etc. And Randy kind of had a very similar question, like running with tents, bivy bags, stove, food, clothing, etc. How much weight and what kind of packs were you guys using?
Yeah, how much did you have to keep with your crew? And how much did you guys have to carry yourself?
On your bags,
yeah.
Well, I'll let Jesse answer this, but go ahead.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Both of us were using UltraSpire packs, and they weren't real big packs, because we left out most of our food and stuff with the camp in the truck because it had to go to the camp the next day. So we pretty much took as much water as we could handle to get to our next spot, which at some points it was, we had a couple 10-mile sections, couple, 14-mile sections. So we had to take quite a bit of water. Although the first couple days we were down in the canyon, so we didn't have to fill our packs all the way up. So we pretty much just took mostly our water and food that we thought we would need, which both of us are on the high fat, low carb diet. So
Right.
we didn't really need to take a whole lot in the way of calories. But we both definitely took enough gear in case something happened. So we had obviously all of our Patagonia gear was status quo. So we had rain pants and jackets if we needed it. If we got into a spot where we had to swim, that we'd have to put a coat on to stay warm, just in case we had a cold swim. So we had just the main essentials that you would take. It was still a warm day, but we still had stuff just in case.
Well, and the other thing we had MSR water filters. So that was really helpful in not having to carry a ton of water. The first day we were in the water, you get onto the rim on day 2 and 3, so we had long sections of no water. So we would have to, we had a camel. Okay, so just to give you a quick rundown of my gear, and I'll give you specifics. I had a 70-ounce bladder and a half a liter up front. And that's what I ran off if we were in the water, and we had the pump. We could just quickly pump. We had a really cool, new product from MSR called Trail Shot that's going to be solid when it comes out for trail runners. It's super light. You can do it on the fly. You can drink right out of the creek with it, and you can pump it right into a bottle. It's pretty sweet. It's a little handheld pump.
Awesome.
That thing was sweet. It just fit in my Strider Pro pockets on my shorts.
That's cool.
So we used that. We had food. We had the water, so we could carry a lot if we needed to. If we knew a section was coming up where we weren't going to have water. And then, like Jesse said, full waterproof layer, top and bottom. We both were wearing Ultra's run gaiters, which were awesome.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Those things were we kept saying all day. Those things are so awesome.
Those were key.
They were so key because you're in and out of the water, and normally you get sand and crap in your shoes. And I did not do one shoe dump the entire
Nope.
any of the days when we were out moving with those gaiters on. So
neither did I.
feet were wet, but they didn't get any junk in them. So that was a key piece, I think, if I were going to look at it. The other was having calf compression, because it was so brushy that would protect your lower legs. So we both had calf compression on, Strider Pro shorts, and then we had multiple layers. Like I had a couple long sleeves and a zip-up long sleeve kind of insulated layer, plus a waterproof. Even though it was 75 degrees during the day and sunny, we still had all those layers just in case someone got hurt and we had to hunker down. We had, dry bags inside of our packs that our entire pack could fit in a dry bag if we had to swim. We also had mini dry bags for electronics, because I had all my backup cords, a spot charger, like a little tiny, Goal Zero, that gives you one full charge on an iPhone. And then we had all the cords for the DeLorme and the iPhone. You had to carry all that stuff. I'm trying to think what else I had. We had so much gear
That you were carrying on you.
Yeah, that's the stuff we were carrying on us, and plus we knew that there were certain checkpoints we would see crew, so we pretty much carried everything for most of the day that we would need. Food, we knew we could get water. We had a couple of key points where we didn't have enough carrying capacity of water that when we got up on the rim, we knew we'd have to have our crew. There were some questionable water spots on the map, and when we got there, they were cattle ponds that were manured out, and we were almost out of water.
Day two was a bad section for us.
Yeah.
We had about an 8-mile section where we were moving pretty slow because we were to the point where we took as much water as we could handle, but our crew didn't hit the point that we thought they were going to hit, that we had set up the day before. So we were running short on water, so we had to come up with a quick a quick plan about what we're going to do. What are we going to do? Because if they don't show up to get us the water we need, we're not going to be able to go and follow the trail, because we can see that there's no more water spots to get water from. So we had to adjust our route so that we could go to a big reservoir.
Yeah, and you have to remember, it was like that second day. It's the Three Forks crossing, and then you're up on the rim the rest of the day till you get to Rome. It's a 40-mile section with no reliable water.
Wow.
So,
Jeez.
So that one was where we would need support, and any unreliable water was cattle ponds. And at one point we were conserving. We were both down to about a half a liter, and we had decided to get off the rim trail, which is was totally cross country, to get on a paralleling kind of gravel, like improved road, so we could get hold of our crew on the radio and they could get to us with a 4-wheel drive. And so we wanted to give them our location, and so we stayed on this road and we didn't run a lot. We mainly conserved and walked, and said, okay, if we run, we're going to burn through our water. If we walk, we can make our water last a long time, and we're not going that much slower. And we can scout each of these unreliable water sources. And we kept coming to one, and we would walk to them, and we'd be like, dude, there's no way I'm drinking that. Like, even with a filter, I'm not drinking that.
No.
So we decided that we would wait till we absolutely had to drink from something like that, until we had, like, exhausted all resources of trying to plan X, Y, and Z before we were going to drink that crap. And it was literally crap.
Yeah.
It was so disgusting, man. It stunk, and it was like, oh, there was just fresh manure all over it, and cattle tracks in the water, and cattle laying around the hole. It was disgusting. And so we were like, no way, man.
No way you guys can drop back down into the canyon at this point, just because there's no access, or
it's 1,500-foot cliffs. So
no big deal. No big deal.
Yeah, no big deal. You can see the water, but you can't get to it.
Oh. You guys should have packed a hang glider. That's all it takes.
Oh yeah, totally.
Simple. Throw it into your packs. We still have questions coming in, because this is gnarly, guys. This is crazy what you guys did. What do we got there, babe?
Jeremy has a question about your nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So they just talked about how much, their question is, how much nutrition did you guys pack? Did you take any just in case? And what kind of nutrition were you guys eating? You've talked about your special diets. So what were you eating during the day?
Yeah, water aside, it seems like water was a challenge in and of itself.
Right.
What about nutrition at this point?
Bacon. We just had slabs of bacon.
I just had a flashback to Hurt. And,
oh, yeah, Hurt.
Jeff
every
running
time.
by us.
I just want some bacon.
Bacon.
That's all Jeff wanted at Hurt. You can see it in the Hurt 100 video. Jeff comes into, I think it's not Nuuanu. It was Paradise. Jeff comes in and he's eating something. I guarantee you it was either a stack of bacon or just a plain burger patty, because that's all Jeff ate all day. It was just
no,
bacon
not all day.
burger.
No, I only did it on the last lap. I had such a lead. I enjoyed the last lap. I was like, somebody got some bacon in here?
Yeah, so what you guys did bacon for this trip? Did you, I mean, I'm assuming there's more stuff. Did you cook it at camp? Did you have it all pre-planned and all prepackaged?
He's joking.
We didn't take it with us, but we did have it morning and evening.
For breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had it for breakfast with our eggs. But no, we ended up just carrying like our normal kind of gel calories, and I had Roctane in a bottle in a big gallon Ziploc with the scooper, just a bunch of powder. So I would just add that every time we pumped, and I'd always have my one bottle, my hydration pack with water, and one bottle with Roctane in it. And then I went off that mostly with a few banana chips and some dates and some I was eating some almonds mixed with that, but I felt the almonds kind of gave me heartburn after day one, so I like threw out the almonds, just put in the dates, and did some like dried mango. And that's really all we went on that's all I went on during the days. I just had that stuff in Ziplocs in the pack, and like had some backup goo blocks and stuff like that for emergencies, and maybe 5 or 6 gels for the whole day that we'd use strategically here and there. But that's pretty much what I went on, just sipped all day. I mean, that's the great thing about being on OFM. You're just like, you don't need as many calories, and you're never like have a low. Like there's a couple of times where Jesse and I probably went in the middle of the day after being on our feet for 6 hours, went 2 or 3 hours without really having much calories, and because we weren't moving super hard, our bodies were just burning onboard fat.
Yeah, your effort levels were they? It is obviously a very difficult thing that you guys did, but was your effort levels just lower? You were keeping it at a certain pace where you were staying in the fat burning phase, essentially?
You know what? We were pretty low as far as like heart rate was concerned, but as soon as we started falling behind on the miles, I know that there were a couple times, at least for me, I don't know about Jeff, but there were a couple times where
we were pushing.
I felt that we were pushing hard enough where we didn't really have much conversation. We were just like out there giving it, trying to make up time is what it amounted to, because the goal was 170. We don't even know the exact number, but somewhere around the 170 mile amount for 4 days. And you know, when you fall literally like, what was it, about 15 miles or so shy the first day, something like that, and then 10 miles, you're trying to catch up. So that's what we were trying to do. And I know there were a bunch of sections where we were pushing pretty hard.
We pushed really hard at the end of day 2, the 48-mile day, like into the evening, and we finished with headlamps that day, and we hit this long valley of double track up on the rim, and it was pretty good and dirt and runnable. It was like there was lava rock in it, but it was like little chicken heads here and there, and that's it. We were like bringing it that day. Like I think we were clipping off probably 7-minute miles through there, just trying to like make up time. And it was kind of slightly downhill. It was like very, very mellow downhill into this valley. And you know, there was a couple times where we were definitely pushing. And those are the times when you got to just up the calories a little bit. I probably popped a couple of gels during that section. But most of the time when we're moving a little slower, the great thing about OFM is even when you're pushing hard, you need less calories per hour, so you don't have to carry as much. Like, and the other thing is, like, even when we went into survival mode on day 3, 4, like, there's times when we were so like kind of fatigued and like trying to figure out our route and route finding the whole night with our headlamps on. There's a lot of times where I didn't eat much, like for several hours at a time. And if in my former self, I would have tanked. I mean, I literally would have not been able to. I would have been a hypoglycemic like zombie, and I would have run out of food that day, and it would have gotten worse, and I would have been in a bad place. And we talked about this actually, I don't know how many times during it. It's like, dude, like this diet, if we weren't on this, like we might be in trouble right now, just from a caloric standpoint.
I couldn't agree with him more. Yeah, absolutely. And that we have to actually say that there's I think everybody knows that, not everybody, but if you are on that high fat diet, the optimized fat metabolism, that's the OFM diet. If you are on that, the product that is put out by Vespa is a great product, and we were both using Vespa during this run, and I personally think that product is fabulous, and it does help with it does what it says it does. It's for real. But you have to be on the diet for it to work.
For it to really work well, I mean, for you to like notice it, you have to be on the diet. And the other thing that I think that is important to note here is that from a caloric standpoint, even when you're doing Vespa, you have to still do a trickle of carbohydrates. So whatever your choice is, whether it's diluted Coke or goo, or mine's Roctane, you know, Jesse, I think, is CarboPro.
Yeah.
And so, like, you got to have something where you're trickling it on a regular basis, so your brain's getting that little bit of glucose, and then your body's just worrying about using a percentage of your caloric intake per hour from onboard fat, and it has that metabolic pathway opened up because of your everyday diet. So I think that's an important thing to note here, is that with us both doing this, that was definitely a factor in us staying fairly alert even under sleep deprivation.
And something I've been wanting to ask you, Jeff, since Hurt, was this a long transition for you? And did you notice it? Was it like a light switch when you were like, oh my God, I can run for 4 or 5 hours and not have to take in calories or at a certain threshold? Or was it something that took a lot of gradual diet changes and that sort of thing? And is it something that's sustainable? Like, is it a sustainable lifestyle?
Well, it's definitely a sustainable lifestyle, but for me, it's been a probably 15-year evolution of diet. You know, I was a vegetarian first with my wife, and I were for 7 years in my 20s, and then we went to like kind of, my wife was having a lot of health issues. I was losing muscle mass. She was having a ton of health issues under a vegetarian diet, and we shifted to kind of more of a whole foods, natural, organic diet, but still high in, you know, carbohydrates and high in grains and like sprouted grains, and we soaked our legumes and, you know, natural meats and getting local meats and that kind of stuff. But still, you know, for me, like mine was forced. My hand was forced when it came to this diet. You know, I don't know if I would have evolved to this diet or not, but I was looking for something to deal with a candida overgrowth in my GI tract, and I'd come across a couple forums. In about 30 hours of research, I came across a couple of forums on paleo and primal blueprint diet, and you know, restricting carbs and not feeding it and not feeding the sugar to the yeast. You know, got rid of the symptoms really quickly, and then I started reading the OFM stuff on bestofpower.com, and I was like, whoa, okay, wait, this could have some performance enhancing things going on. So then I was really like dialed. I was like, okay, I'm focused. I'm going to figure out this thing. So I read 4 books. I read the science behind it. I read the dogma of how cholesterol and fat got demonized in our society, and how it's on shoddy science, and it's a house of cards, and all those things that led me to this point, and to understand mentally that I'm not afraid of fat, and I can eat the fat off a steak, and what's more concerns me is like that I get it from a good, like, local source. Like, for me, that's important. It's also cheaper, you know, than going to Whole Foods or something, and you know, and so for me, it's supporting local. There's a whole bunch of lifestyle stuff that goes along with this that lines up with the way I believe, and also, I mean, I have to say, I feel 10 years younger, and I recover way, like, in a quarter of the time after races, and after something like this. You know, I went out for a little jog today. I still got a little, like, couple of niggles, and I ended up walking. But all my swelling's gone, and, you know, it's gone right away as soon as I started restricting carbs. It makes the inflammation response go way down. So, and I know Jesse's experienced that too. Like, that's the biggest thing on this diet is the recovery. Like,
Yeah,
when
after
you're done with a race, you're like, whoa, that just blew
like,
my mind.
2 days later, I could go out for a run, no problem.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, perfect example, Jesse, being able to do Lake Sonoma 50 miler, and then the next week win Leona Divide 50 miler.
Yeah. I really didn't have any, what I felt to be real fatigue in my legs from Lake Sonoma. Of course, I didn't run very fast there, but but yeah, I started the race not knowing what to expect, and the race just came to me, and I really didn't have any, what I just said, any effects from Lake Sonoma, and it was only 1 week out. And even after Leona Divide, I still, like 2 days later, was already walking, you know, as if I hadn't even raced. So,
and you got married that week too.
Yeah.
Completely fat adapted. It's pretty awesome.
Quite a month.
Yeah, quite a month. Congratulations too, by the way.
Thank you.
For wedding, for the wedding. We have some more questions, Kim. What do we got?
Our Evie asked, how do people with families make time to train and run in these huge events?
Yeah, for you guys, you both have families. Jesse, you had just gotten married. How do you convince your spouses, loved ones, family to let you go away for 4, 5, 6 days?
Well, obviously, I think most people know that Kira Henniger is now my wife. So, being that she's an ultra runner herself, it really wasn't that difficult. She may have hid the feelings that she had about me taking off the day after we got married, but yeah, just having somebody that is very understanding about what adventure means to you is a big part of it. And I know Jeff has many responsibilities with the fact that he has 3 kids, but yeah, just like you said, we're out there. We're regular people. We're out there doing, you know, working. I leave my house I wake up at 4 in the morning every day. Leave the house I'm gone by 5 o'clock, and I don't get home till 5 to 6 at night. So for me to go out and train after I get home from a long day of work is pretty difficult. come something like Western States, I definitely find the time to go out there after work because I have to. But yeah, mainly my training comes just on the weekends, which is usually 2 long runs if I'm not working on a Saturday. There's been many times where I work on a Saturday also, so Sunday is my only day to run. So I actually looked at this little adventure that we did selfishly as it's going to be my Western States training block. But yeah, so Jeff can talk about his family life, but yeah, it's very difficult to try to do this stuff as a working individual and not a paid professional athlete. So go for it, Jeff.
Well, so I work Monday through Friday, and I have my own business. So I'm a graphic designer. So I kind of have a more flexible schedule than most people. I can work at nights. I have deadline-driven projects. So sometimes I work a crazy week, and sometimes it's a mellow week. So I just kind of go with the ebbs and flows of my particular production schedule with graphic design. I'm also coaching, which I just launched, and I have 2 clients right now. And I'm only going to take 5 out there, people. So I have 3 slots left. So I am transitioning into coaching this year, part time, but I'm going to keep my graphic design business because I love designing. But also, you know, for me, I look at it as like I can work out at lunch. So I work out at, you know, I'm in front of a computer. So I need the break, and I need the mental break from designing, and like I come back fresher after I run. So I train at lunch during the week, Monday through Thursday. Fridays I run long and take time on that day. I work during the weeks from Sunday night to Thursday night. I work at night to make up for Friday, and then Fridays I go run long. I usually get back in the afternoon and I hang out with my family, and we go to my wife and I go to coffee or something, and we go do something fun. And then weekends are maintenance runs for me, and all I have to do is like an hour and a half. And my son's almost 14, so we're to the point where we're going out on some runs together.
Oh, that's cool.
On the weekends, and he trains on his own during the week, you know, with headphones on, and goes out and runs, you know, some single track close to our house. But you know, that's just his thing, and his own relationship with running. But the cool thing is that you just have to kind of find what works for your family. Like my wife is very understanding and gives me a long leash with this for sure. Like I have to give her props. Sometimes it's a stress on the family, definitely, because I race a lot, and I do stuff like this where I take off, and you know, in 2 weeks I'm gone another week to go to the Western States training runs and go to Ventura to Patagonia for some off-site stuff. And so, like, you know, it definitely, we have to like make sure we're putting everything on the calendar. You know, I have 3 kids, and my youngest is almost 5, and my oldest is almost 14. So, you know, with 3 kids and inactivities, I just got here barely in time. As Ethan knows, I was eating food right before we went live in front of my computer because I got home from my daughter's soccer practice, taking her to soccer, and like, you know, I jogged during her soccer practice, and then I came home and like had to run an errand on the way home to get toothbrushes, and you know.
It never stops, man.
It never stops, dude. I don't sit down.
I mean, literally, you're standing right now. I know you have a standing desk, right?
Yeah, I totally stand all day. So I stand at a computer desk. So I literally don't sit down during the day. But I have to say, it's a lot easier on being fat adapted. I'm fat adapted, bro. Fat adapted.
You got to write a book, because this is now like going to be the best. This is going to be the best listen, or the most listened podcast, purely because people are going to want to hear about how Jeff and Jesse do the OFM and all that sort of thing. We're going to kind of wrap up the main show here, but before we do, there's still stuff to talk about with Owyhee.
Owyhee.
I said Owyhee, which is from Yosemite. That's the lodge in Yosemite.
Yep.
Owyhee. I was really curious about. There's a video. Jesse sent me a video. If you can kind of set this up, I know that you guys had a real big river crossing swim at a confluence. I believe it was at the confluence. Kind of set this up for us.
Well, I thought it was a little bit more interesting than it was, but it was just after we had crossed. We had changed our clothes, and we started hiking up to go into the upland route instead of down along the river bottom, which is what the GPS waypoints were telling us that's the way we were supposed to go. but due to Jeff and Jeremy's excellent bailout options, we thought about the possibility of trying to go overland so that we could make up some time and try to get the whole Owyhee Canyonlands Last Darkness project finished. So
I will
this
say
is just
that
it's just mainly just a video of the surrounding area to
So
see
if you
what it looks
get
like.
to give you guys a little extra background on it, when you see him pan it, the whole lower part of the canyon is where we were supposed to go, what he's showing, and then he kind of pans back towards me. When you see back over behind me is where we crossed the river.
There
We
you
had just
go.
crossed the river, like I said, it was at almost 2,000 cubic feet per second. You know, it was muddy. It was way up in the willows, like waist deep in the willows on the sides of the banks. So it was really high and flowing really well. We had to cross a pretty decent rapid section where we put all our packs in we stripped down to our shorts and shoes and put everything in a dry bag, big dry bag, held it with one hand and swam with the other arm and kicked across. And I mean, I hit boulders with my feet that were underneath us in the river. I mean, we went through a rapid section, and I don't know, what was it, probably maybe 40 meters, 50 meters across?
Yeah, something like that. And Jeff actually went first, and I saw where he went, and I got quite afraid of the section that he went through. So I actually went upriver maybe another 50 feet and waded out probably halfway across the river before I got swept in. I was taken in.
Oh,
It wasn't a
geez.
decision. I was I was trying to cross, and it just swept me in. I knew I had to get in, but so that's what it was. It was the video after we had swam.
We were screaming and yelling after we got out, though. It was a big adrenaline rush for sure.
Oh, for sure.
I can imagine it was quite exhilarating, basically almost being swept away by a river there, Jesse. But this is the video that Jesse filmed on his phone. If anything, it shows just the beauty of the area that they were in. We've been showing some photos that they took during the course of the trip, but this is a pretty great video.
That's where we crossed.
River's wide. We're opting to take the trail up to the rim out of this canyon. There's not too much area out here where you can actually hike along the edges of the river. It's a lot steeper than it looks on those edges. In the river all day. Cool looking cave over there. What do you think, Jeff?
That was a legit swim. I can tell you that right now. Legit.
Perfect.
It looks beautiful. It looks absolutely stunning in that canyon, and I imagine the views were plenty.
The place was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. If they had trails there and it was easily accessible, I would imagine every person that there would be as many visitors there as there is the Grand Canyon. Well, maybe not as many, but it's pretty epic place. Thank you, Jeff, for letting me be a part of that.
Yeah, man. Owyhee's wild. It's really, really cool and remote.
Well, it sounds like quite an adventure that you guys undertook there. I believe your goal was 170 miles. Were you able to complete all 170 miles, or what?
No, that's the best part.
Yep.
Is we weren't able to, and the events that led up to us not being able to were probably the most epic of the whole adventure.
I think a part of me wants to save that for the post show, just for the live viewers and for those who watch on the YouTube side. So maybe that's what I'll do. If you're listening on the podcast, I encourage you to go watch the live show and the YouTube channel, which those of you who are watching live are watching right now, because we're going to have Jesse and Jeff talk a bit about the circumstances that led to them not being able to complete the 170-mile journey, but it still sounds like they had quite the adventure. So if you're watching the live show, thank you so much. Stick around, because we're going to do a post show right now with Jesse and Jeff, talking about how this adventure came to a conclusion for them. And what a great show. Jeff, shout out for where your social media shout out to where your social media connections
You
are.
okay?
I don't know. I think I'm not working with the English language well now. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, it's gobroncobilly.com. Is blog and coaching, and then at gobroncobilly is Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And Jesse, where can people find you?
I'm not sure.
On Twitter, it's at Jesse M. Haynes.
Yes, thank you. It's at Jesse M. Haynes, and that's it, Twitter and Instagram. The blog, I haven't really blogged too much in the last couple of years, so yeah, you probably don't even. I think it's jessehaynes.com or something like that.
I think it's jessekicksAssOFM.com
There
all that. So if you're watching live, please go follow these guys. Thank them for being on the show tonight. Stick around because I actually can't wait to hear about this part. I'm sorry I'm not putting it in the main show, but maybe this will drive the podcast listeners to come watch the show. We already get tons of good live viewers, so if you're watching live or even watching the archive version, you'll be able to hear all about how this adventure concluded for them. So I'm really excited about that. And thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
How'd the chat room work out?
Chat room's great.
They
They're
were
always
talking
great.
about all sorts of good stuff tonight.
Some people have to go to bed because they are.
Because it's a little bit later, yeah. And Jesse, I know that Jesse has to go to bed too because he has to be at work tomorrow morning at like.
Oh, that's all right. I still have a half hour.
Okay, good. Great. So stick around, guys, because we're going to do a little bit more conversation with Jeff and Jesse about the Owyhee adventure, The Last Darkness. So stick around.
Ginger Runner.
This is what I've been most interested in, guys. The third day that bled into the fourth day. What the hell happened? So how did this adventure come to a conclusion? Like, what was going on?
I don't know. What point would you want to start, Jeff? The decision? Should we call it the decision?
Well, we had a really good plan going into that day to get us to the finish line because we were behind. And it was basically just breaking up the mileage into 2 days, the last day 3 and day 4. We were going to be somewhere in the low 40s each day, and we kind of felt like we could do that. But once we had decided to camp it up, we had to be up down in the river and then back up on the rim again. And we were on the rim, and we were supposed to meet crew about 6 miles from a base camp location called Birch Creek. We were going to meet at this place called Iron Point, take some photos and video. It was like supposed to be super scenic, and it absolutely was. We got there, and it had been sunny and like burning hot all day. And when we got to that point, we noticed that the clouds were getting darker as we approached that point, and we were like, wow, man, it looks like it might be coming our way. And we got to the truck, and we were talking to those guys. We took some photos, and then we were like sitting there getting resupplied for a continued 6 miles, and it just let loose like lightning, hail, rain, and we hunkered down by the truck and inside the truck. And then it was like, you have to understand this place is a roadless area. So we're talking double track, right?
Yeah.
And like
What they call
four-drive
Jeep
double track.
roads.
It's all
Jeep
Jeep
roads.
roads. Like we're talking 4 hours to get to a paved road.
Mm.
So one of the photographers were like, dude, like we're gonna get in trouble if we sit here too long. It's just pouring down rain. And he's like, right now it's just peanut butter on top of the roads, but if it gets any worse, we're gonna get really bad. It's gonna get saturated in spots. We're gonna have like water crossings, and like we could get
We're
stuck.
not going to be able to get out. Is
Yeah.
what he said.
And we have to,
Yeah.
and we would have to wait till it dried out. And the forecast was for the weather to deteriorate over the weekend. And it was Thursday evening. So we were like, okay, like we almost bagged it at that point. We got in the car, we got in the truck, and I was like the one that had to make the decision because it's my project. And I said, okay, well, if we got to get out, let's get out. And so we started to drive. And we drove about 10 minutes, not very far because it's on double track, so we didn't make it that far. And it quit raining. And we were like, and like, okay, wait. And so then we started talking it through in the car, and like, I don't want to give up on the project. And so we turned around. We ended up like turning around and taking us back to that point. And I said, Jesse, well, then we had the discussion. It was like, they can't get to the point we were supposed to camp at for base camp with the rain because it had rained and everything was muddy. at that point, it was an even worse road that they were on. And so we said, oh, crap, what are we going to do? And I said, well, I guess we got to make it all the way to Leslie Gulch, which has a 10-mile improved gravel road that comes to a boat launch. And that was where we had to make it to. And that would have put us back on our original plan of the end of day 3. And so, but we were at 37 miles, and that was another 28. And it was like
at 6 p.m.
At 6 p.m. By the time we got back to our point of start and we got re-geared up with more water and more food and extra layers, we were like, okay, it was like almost 7 o'clock, and we took off for 28 miles, and most of that, probably half of that at least, was off trail. There's a little bit of double track in that section up on the rim, and then we had a ton of like off trail stuff. And that's kind of where the epic kind of started, I would say.
Like basically the terrain just started getting gnarly, and I'm assuming it took a long time.
You're stepping down and picking up 2 inches. Well, there's like an inch of wet mud that comes off of the layer that's underneath it. So you're lifting twice the weight of your foot. So it made running nearly impossible. Although we still tried to do it, it made running so difficult that I already had, and at this point I had been running all day on the tendon that's in front of your foot that lifts your foot. That tendon was already to the point where it was swollen, that I almost told Jeff that I'm not going to even start day 3.
Wow.
But I sucked it up, and I was like, I'm just going to go as far as I can. I don't even know if I let him know that it was bad.
No, you didn't. You didn't.
At that point, it was really swollen, and so when we decided to go on, I said, okay, now we got 28 miles, and we have these kind of conditions where we're lifting. The actual part of the foot that needs the lift was the part that was sore, to the point where Jeff actually had his tendon start to get sore in the same spot, and I believe it was from the mud that he was lifting. I don't know for sure, but
like you're probably adding a pound per foot strike essentially.
So it ended up being just a long slog, and for 2 ultra runners that are used to doing, I don't know, let's put it somewhere, in the 8 to 9 minute mile per minute per mile range.
During an ultra, yeah.
Yeah. Now we're slowed to like 13 to 17 minutes per mile. And I remember one point we started running, and we were both out of breath, and Jeff looks over at me and he's like, "How fast do you think we're running right now?" And I'm like, I'm gonna say like 7:30s, and I'm breathing hard, and he's like, 9:17, buddy, 9:17. So then it just turned into a big game. We just started getting all goofy and like saying funny stuff back and forth. I was funnier than Jeff was. You can ask him. But yeah,
he was huge in his own mind.
I was.
Are you guys delirious at this point?
Yes.
I mean, are you just
Absolutely.
sharing stories, like personal stories, or where are you going with your mind?
No, we were just. It was kind of like just little one-liners. He was, at one point he said that we're doing like 4 miles an hour, and I started off with this. Well, if we're doing 4 miles an hour, that's like 12 miles per minute. And I'm trying to go through this math in my head.
Yeah.
The videographer called it, that section's called bad math. So if the video comes out and they show that and they put that audio on there, it's gonna be pretty funny. But yeah, we were just going slow.
It was funny, dude. He was just going, yeah, so like 4 miles an hour is like 12-minute miles, and I was like, no, dude, that's 5 miles an hour, man. And he's like, and so I started laughing. I'm over there giggling, and I had the wherewithal, at least, to turn on iTalk on my phone, on the app, so we could record what we were talking about. And it was maybe like 2-3 minutes worth of dialogue, but it's him trying to do math, me laughing my butt off, because he's so like off. He's like, no, he can't do math. It's like my 4-year-old doing math or something.
It really was.
Oh, it was classic.
I'm really you guys have a crew with you, a videographer, photographer, friends. Are they like right alongside you, or are they kind of pacing up on top of the rim while you guys are down below, or are they just getting to location as soon as possible
Yeah.
and waiting for you to come through?
Getting to
Yeah, they're
location.
just go ahead.
Well, they were just getting to our location every time because they had to do a lot of driving on double track just to get to us. So we would pick a key spot where we knew was scenic, and that was easy to, well, not easy, but like at least had double track close to it so they could hike overland to get to it. They ran some section with us. Like I said, they were ultra runners. So they did run the canyon the first day, and they ran a couple other little sections with us. But most of the time, because of the equipment, they were trying to drive in with the base camp of stuff. So we were trying to like do the logistics of that. So Jesse and I were by ourselves most of the time. I had a good I have a good Canon point and shoot, and so I was carrying that. He was carrying his GoPro for part of it, and then our phones. So we were trying, and we both had iTalk on our phones, so we could record video or audio if we needed to like say something and like have a deep thought by Jack Handy.
But the worst part about the whole thing is when we left that spot, when we saw our crew for the last time for that 29 or 28, I can't even remember
28.
how many miles it was, but when we left them, Fred, actually, I said, here, take the GoPro. I don't want to take this weight if we're going to be going that far. Plus, I don't think I'm going to video anyway because it's going to be so difficult. He's like, you might want to think about that. Why don't you take it with? I'm like, no, I don't want it. And Jeff got rid of his camera too because of the extra weight, because we wanted to be as light as we possibly could be. And we were both kicking ourselves because 12 hours later, we come to this point out of the last drop of the Willow Creek to Lake Owyhee, and it's classic. Jeff walks to the edge of the water, and he goes, and it's dark. You can't see anything. So your headlamp's on. All you see is blackness out in front of us.
Water.
And the edge of the water. And he goes, oh, no.
Oh, man.
We had 3 miles to go to camp, but it was all with water blocking our path. So we couldn't get to camp. And so it's 4 in the morning. We're freezing because it's got to be in the 30s.
We're at 60.
Our feet are wet.
62 miles in and 21 hours on our feet. And it's 4 in the morning. We've been running since 8:40 that morning. And we were just like, dude, like we tried to find a route and we were so out of it we couldn't do math. We couldn't really even carry on a conversation to each other, like a sane conversation where we could figure it out. Like Jesse was like, oh, we could swim, dude. I was like, man, that water is like 40 degrees.
Yeah,
we're going to go hypothermic. We weren't making good decisions.
No, it was like 3 miles downriver to the camp, and there's no current because it's the lake. It's where the river drops in above it, and so it's where the lake starts, but it's a really narrow canyon, like with 1,500-foot walls, and in low time, there's an embankment along the side of the water edge, so you can just come down and walk the 3 miles down to camp. We got there and it's water all the way to like the edge of everything. So we got there and you put our headlamps on high beam, and that's when I was like, dude, we are blocked, man. We can't get down there. We're screwed.
Jeff came up with this ingenious plan looking at the map. All right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go up this one. It's only a 1,500-foot climb. We're going to go back down this side through that river. We're going to climb back up to the plateau. There's a plateau up there, and we're going to descend to camp. I was like, that spot that you're telling us that we're going to descend to camp is like 4 miles from camp still. I was like, we don't have enough food. We don't have enough water. Do you want to drink that cow-ridden water? And so we just decided, you know what, we better just, all right. We got 2 hours to daylight. We can see what this lake actually looks like. From the map, it looked like it was vertical edges all the way along the side. So there was, in my mind, there was no point in trying to traverse along the lake to see if we could make it, because if we got a mile down and all of a sudden there's a vertical edge, we'd have to come a mile back. And so we're both so tired. My foot's killing me. We just decided we're gonna, do an open bivvy and build a fire, and that's what we did. We grabbed a bunch of firewood, and both of us crashed curled up next to each other and spooned for the rest of the night. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Was it still raining? Was it like
No. It wasn't raining. It was just cold out. Very, very, very cold with a little bit of wind. But
so you ended up sleeping and then waking up at daylight. Is that what this photo is from? That's not what this is.
that's what that is. That's when we just started. And Jeff's like, "Look we can get around the lake." Had we known that, we could have continued on to camp 2 hours without the, 2 hours previous, and we would have been back to camp at a decent, I guess you could say decent hour, probably like 6 in the morning or something like that. And we could have eaten breakfast and gone on, but we killed 2 hours with waiting for daylight to get there and tightened up and didn't have anything to eat for that extra 2 hours. We actually got our packs out. Jeff's like, "Let's take inventory. What kind of food do we have left?" I said, "I have 2 gels." He's like, "I've got 3. Oh wait, here's another one. Here, you can have it. He actually split it. He gave me his food.
That's crazy that it's come down to that though. After so many days of being out there, you guys have to split a gel essentially just to like get back to base camp. That's crazy.
Well, so the thing that I think is a good point when we come back to bring this back around to safety, we were at a point because of fatigue that we were having trouble making like good decisions. And Jesse really kind of brought us in. He's like, he kept pushing like, "No, we need to make a fire, dude, and we need to hunker down for like an hour and a half, and it's gonna be daylight, and then we can see what we're up against." And I kept being like hammerhead and being like, "No, dude, we're gonna go up this thing to the flat." And so I finally caved. I said, "Okay, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's make a fire." We could communicate with the Delormes, with the satellite stuff, with our camp, and we said, "We're okay. We're gonna hunker down till daylight so we can see what we're up against, and we're gonna build a fire. We have a lighter. We have a bunch of dry wood." Luckily, it hadn't rained in that pocket because everything rained in different isolated spots, and we had moved 28 miles from where that rainstorm was. So that pocket hadn't really rained that hard. So we found tons of dry wood. Luckily, made curled up on the beach and like slept in the dirt with our hoods up and waterproof layers on and curled towards the fire. And I wish we would have had the GoPro with us for that piece because we could have just like shown us trying to talk to each other and make a fire.
It was pretty hilarious.
It was pretty hilarious.
It's only going to be in our minds.
Totally. Probably better left there anyway.
I can imagine it's a special moment of triumph, but also like learning and camaraderie and partnership and all that sort of thing. It is one of those things that I'm sure you guys will keep in your memories forever. There's going to be a certain element that you're going to be glad that it's not on film, but I can understand that there's also this like, oh, if only we had brought that extra 4 ounces.
Well, I had my phone, I could have videoed, but I didn't have the wherewithal to turn it on.
Right, of course. Yeah. Or open up the right app. Next thing you know, you're Snapchatting. What is happening?
So it was right at the point of that picture that I was walking toward Jeff.
I'll bring it up.
He looked at me and he's like, "Look, we can get through." And I walked up to him and I was like, "Let's do this." And he's like, "Are we going to do the 30 miles?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we both high-fived and we're like, "Yes, we're saved. We can get there. We can do this." And then we started proceeding on, and my foot was like, I was like, "I don't know if I can do another 30 miles, Jeff." And he was like, "Yeah, mine's hurting a little bit too." I mean, he was definitely not in the shape that I was in, but just reality started setting in about what time of day it was, what time we were actually going to get to camp, because we still had 3 to 4 miles to get to camp at that point.
Right.
And the way we were going, like that night, I didn't have a watch on, but I know we made the 2.5 mile section. It took us like 3 hours to go 2.5 miles.
Wow.
Because it was nighttime, because it was vertical, stuff like that. But we just started adding up how much time it was going to take us to cover that last 30 miles, and we just didn't have it. What it amounted to is we didn't have the time because we were on a time schedule to get it done. It was just going to be the terrain just didn't allow for us to do it. If it was a normal 50K, we could have easily gone
knocked
out
out.
and knocked that
Yeah, we
out.
could have knocked out a 50K single track just by jogging, but we knew the terrain at that point, and we were like, this is not like a 7-hour 50K. It's more like a 12 to 14-hour 50K,
Plus, we
and
looked at the map and it said all cross country. It was all cross country.
no trail.
Jeez. So at that point, did you just both agree, let's get to base camp and reevaluate, or let's get to base camp, that's it, hug, and that's the day.
It's interesting. On the trail, we said we're done. Let's just get to base camp. We're done. We sat down at base camp, started having some food, had coffee, started feeling pretty good because we got food in our bellies now. And
Yeah.
then the real decision actually came through, and it was talked about for a good hour about how we should continue on, that we could probably get it done. Jeff went through all the mile. He pulled the map out. We went through where all the water stops are. We added up the mileage. We actually went through as if we were going to continue on. I probably would have sucked it up and tried to go if we had decided that, and just maybe pulled out if my foot would have totally given out. But yeah, we just came to terms with what we actually were up against.
Is it something that you feel is unfinished, or do you feel like, oh no, this is a finished project? Is it something that you would go back and do again? Maybe that hasn't sunk in yet. Like maybe that's still a decision to be made.
It'd be cool to try to do the whole thing, but you can't do it in the time period that we put ourselves in to do it with. And it would actually be a lot more fun if we had more days to do it, because we talked many times about how it would be cool just to go through this canyon and then get up to the ledge and camp somewhere and then come back in. And if you could do it without the goal of having to hit it underneath a certain period of time, and do it later in the year, because a lot of the river sections, which are the most beautiful parts, is being down in the canyon. A lot of those sections are now hikeable, and you actually would want to get into the water if it's cold out, instead of fearing getting in the water because the water is so cold and you'd be in it so often. So I don't know. I'd be up for trying to try to go from point A to point B again, just probably a different time of year and under different time constraints.
I'd like to finish the last 30 miles because the honeycomb section of that is supposed to be one of the most beautiful sections, and I've been to it on the backpacking trip, just on the northern edge of it. So I'd love to go through the whole thing. It is literally like a pocketed volcanic tuff like Smith Rock. So it's like super dynamic looking and really cool little side canyons you're going through and up onto the top and then back down through some canyons. So I would love to go do the last 50K just on my own time, like as a point to point. At some point I will do that, just to finish out the route. It may be years before I do it, but because I'm already at this adventure, like made me go, I kind of want to do another one of these somewhere else. Just because I've been racing so hard for 15, 16 years, and it's I love racing, but there's something to just like planning your own adventure and then coming up with the logistics of what you want to do and figuring out how to fund it and all those things and doing it, and there's definitely stuff I learned in this project that I would do differently next time, but it's all a learning experience at the end of the day, and every adventure is different, and you have to be able to roll with the punches because, Mother Nature definitely gives you punches, and if you think it's going to go smooth and it all looks good on paper, you better have a bunch of other plans, backup plans, because she'll throw a wrench in your plan for sure.
Absolutely. Well, guys, it sounds like just an epic undertaking, let alone an epic adventure that you guys endured. And despite not completing the whole 170 miles, it doesn't matter. I feel like it's incredibly impressive that you managed to get as far as you did under the circumstances. No trail, heat, cold weather, rain, thunder, lightning, rattlesnakes, ticks. Oh, the ticks.
Actually, I just found one in my hair while we were on air. I just found one from. I was kidding.
No, you should go take care of that.
I should probably check my hair.
You do have luscious locks that are probably great for ticks. You got to check that. Just do it tomorrow at work.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me tonight and for a longer episode. I really appreciate it. The stories are awesome. I feel like we maybe even just scratched the surface of what you guys encountered out there. Those of you who are watching live, thank you for sticking through with the post show as well, because I think that was also one of the most interesting parts of it. I may just throw this into the podcast. Normally, I don't do the post show on the podcast because it's not interesting. It's normally just questions. Yeah, this was too good. This is like a great summation of the entire adventure for you guys. So yeah, once again for Jeff, where can they find you on social media, Jeff?
At gobroncobilly.com and at gobroncobilly on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And Jesse?
I can't remember my blog, but there's no reason to go there.
I think someone said jessiemhaynes.blogspot.com. I think someone actually found it.
Yeah. I may actually do a blog on this adventure because it was so epic. Yeah, I think I will do something at least. But other than that, yeah, it's Twitter at Jesse M. Haynes. Also Instagram is the same, Jesse M. Haynes.
Follow the men, give them some shout outs, and thank you for being on the show. And thank you, lovely Kim.
Thank you for having me. And on sort of unrelated / related note, I want to give a shout out to Jesse's brand new wife, Kira Henninger. She puts on some amazing races down here in SoCal.
Yep.
The race that we just ran a few weeks ago, Leona Divide.
Leona Divide, Ray Miller 50/50.
Sean O'Brien.
She has smaller races. If you're interested in the shorter distance, she has Griffith Park Marathon, Griffith Park Half Marathon, 10K, Paramount Ranch 10K. She actually has 10K. She might even throw a 50K on there this year at Paramount Ranch.
Nice.
And that may be it. But she's always making new ones. And she also has her Ultra Ladies nutrition camps. And also does a training camp. It used to be the Dirt Divas, but now it's the Divas and Dudes. So I don't know if
Divas and Dudes.
Yeah, she's gonna go co-ed with this one this year.
Nice, yeah. Big shout out to Kira. She's always been really supportive of us and the show, and her races are top notch. Beautiful terrain, always. Some of you Ginger Runner viewers have actually traveled to Kira's races because you've heard about him or remember her from being on the show or seen pictures and stuff, which is just awesome. We had someone from the East Coast, actually, this most recent, Leona Divide, flew all the way out from the East Coast last minute and ran it with us. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Ginger Runner viewer. So go follow these gentlemen. Thank them for being on the show. If you guys have more questions for them directed towards their social media, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to shout out. And I'm assuming there will be some sort of movie that comes of this, perhaps, Jeff?
Well,
Maybe?
it's to be determined. We mainly were catching it because we were going to be there. Patagonia wanted to grab some of the video from that,
Yep.
So they'll probably put something out in the spring. And then we'll also there is a full featured article coming out in September issue of Trail Runner magazine. I'm going to write about with a bunch of Fred's images that'll be like kind of talking about the project and why, and even more details than what we gave you tonight. So. You'll get the full meal deal on that.
Definitely want to check that out. And Fred's photos are fantastic. Both of these guys have been posting them to social media, so go check out some of those pics. They definitely show the beauty and the gnarliness of the terrain. So thanks again, gentlemen. Really appreciate you joining us on the show tonight. And thank you all live viewers. Whose birthday? Oh, and a shout out to a regular viewer, Raul Engel. It's his birthday, so happy birthday, Raul. He's almost on every single Ginger Runner live in the chat room since like the very beginning, and he's a local SoCal guy, so big shout out to him. Happy birthday. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching live, and we'll see you guys next Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Got a good show. I believe we're going to be joined by Chris Vargo and Alicia Shea from Spain or somewhere in Europe talking about Transvolcania, which just occurred this last weekend. If you raced this last weekend or were out pacing or any of that kind of stuff, congratulations. I hope you got it done. We had a lot of big races happening this weekend, so we'll talk more about that this week. And Ginger Runner's new album drops on Thursday. Go to social media, new music, all that good stuff on Thursday. That's it. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.